Welcome to RAIN, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network with your hostess, Jen Josie. Join like-minded real estate investors and accelerate your business towards greatness. You will hear step-by-step strategies for success, interviews with real estate rock stars, and we will dig deep into past projects where we bear it all, including the good, the bad, and some just plain ugly. So get excited. Here's the bestower of badassery herself, the real Jen Josie. Listener discretion is advised.
Hi, and welcome back. I'm Jen Josie, creator of RAIN, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network. Whoop, whoop. On today's episode, we have a guest that will be sharing one of their past projects. We will let you decide if it was good or bad or just plain ugly. But before we begin, here's today's badassery bestowment, my little badass gift to you. Today's topic is the 1% rule. When investing in long-term rental properties, it's essential to have quick guidelines for evaluating potential deals. One commonly used method is the 1% rule, which can help investors gauge whether a property will likely generate positive cash flow. So let me break it down. The definition of the 1% rule states that the monthly rental income should be at least 1% of the total purchase price of the property, minus any repairs or renovations. Here's an example. If you buy a property for $200,000, the goal is to collect at least $2,000 in rent per month. The purpose of the rule provides a quick estimate of whether a property will likely generate enough rental income to cover expenses such as mortgage payments, property taxes, insurance, and maintenance costs. While it's a helpful guideline, the 1% rule doesn't account for factors like location, property condition, or market demand. It's just a starting point for further analysis. So, the 1% rule offers a simple way to assess the cash flow potential of a rental property. However, it's important to combine this with more in-depth research to make informed, badass investment decisions. Now, on to today's episode of the Real Estate Investor Growth Network podcast. We have with us my friend, Bill Goglin. Bill spent 23 years in corporate America, but recently left to go all in to the world of real estate investing. With a desire to flip houses, he joined Homeschooled by Tarek Al-Moussa mentorship program and was guided through the practices and techniques by some of the most successful real estate investors in the country. With the housing market frenzy during COVID and not being able to secure a house to flip, he switched course and went a different direction in real estate investing. Bill custom built and now manages Llama House Dahlonega, a shipping container getaway in the foothills of the North Georgia mountain wine country. Bill's next venture is an additional unique build on his property in Dahlonega. I have had the privilege of witnessing Bill's real estate journey from the start, and I'm incredibly proud of his success. So let's get this party started. Welcome to the show, Bill Goglin.
What is happening?
I miss you. It's so good to see you.
Dude, this is awesome. I love it.
So we met at Homeschooled by Tarek Al-Moussa, great coaching program, which is unfortunately no longer, but it was an awesome experience for both of us, actually. So I got to meet awesome people like Bill. So give us a little background. You're now in Georgia, but I know you didn't start in Georgia. So how did you end up in Georgia?
Yeah, so I actually grew up just south of Pittsburgh, and for the first 32 years of my life was in southwestern Pennsylvania. And then working for my company, I moved to Florida with them, and then to Georgia before I just recently. I am fresh out. Just last Friday was my very last day with them.
Congratulations. Yeah. Are you scared?
Absolutely. It is the weirdest feeling in the world to leave a W-2, first off, but also to leave somewhere where you have been. I've been there since I graduated college. So I graduated college in May and I started there in November.
Wow. Yeah.
Ever since.
It is so scary. I can remember when I first left corporate America, I was like, I'm turning off my alarm. I'm doing this. And then people just laughed at me on Facebook and they're like, Jen, you are going to be waking up a lot earlier than your alarm. And I actually do, which is the funny part, because now I'm excited to start my day because I'm doing something that I'm passionate about, which is real estate investing. So,
Yeah, and I'm not telling people to just jump in. It just happened to line up for me that I was able to do that. And, my company was offering a voluntary severance package for people. And you know what I mean? Like, everything kind of lined up. So I'm not, I don't want people out there to be like, oh, I'm going to build something and leave. Like, don't do that, so.
And thank you for saying that, because that is one of the biggest mistakes people can make. It's so important to have a cash flowing asset that is going to be generating income before you decide to part ways. And it sounds like you had the perfect storm with a nice hefty severance there. So severance, if I could say that word properly. So great job. And thank you for saying that, because a lot of people do it the wrong way.
I don't want people out there being like, this guy said, they said I could do this.
So you literally have been involved in real estate for how long?
So it started in 2022.
2022. And then in these 2 short years, you have gotten a nice solid foundation of an education. You were actually wanting to flip houses, but that didn't happen. And the great part about real estate is you can change direction. Actually, I have changed directions, I don't know how many times. So it is a really, it's a great industry where you have that flexibility. So I know you said you couldn't get a house to flip. It was crazy prices when you were looking. But before we get into this project we're going to talk about, tell us about the name of your company. I love this story.
So I had this coach and homeschooled, and she was like, don't be making the name of your company your name or something generic. You need to think of something that stands out. And I it took me forever. I racked my brain about that, and I came up with 7 Llamas Real Estate, and I had amazing logo made, and it just kind of fell into place. And it happened for multiple reasons. It was based off of a conversation I had in the past, and llamas were showing up at that time for some reason. I don't know. It just all fell into place, and that's how it came to. So 7 Llamas Real Estate was created.
Yes.
And my coach Jen Josie loved it.
I did.
And
tell us why you chose 7, because you taught me this.
Yeah. So 7 is actually the most searched number online. So it kind of just fell into place. And I learned that like as I was trying to create this name, but also too, everybody that hears it, no matter what, everybody, they go 7 llamas. They're like llamas. And it's just so it's kind of out there, you know what I mean? And when you think, I don't know anybody that doesn't love llamas. Like you see all these things with llamas, you know what I mean? So it is kind of weird, but at the same time, it's memorable. It makes you think about it.
It makes you stand out from the crowd. So bravo to you. I love that you don't like, at first I went, what? And then it just totally makes sense. And that's going to lead us into the property we're discussing today, which is Llama House. And now you have your branding, and now it's going to start going into your projects here, which I love. So this is a first for the Real Estate Investor Growth Network podcast, which is why I'm like, Bill, hurry up. I want you on the show. You did a shipping container. You converted a shipping container into a short-term rental. And off the bat right here, I just want to say, unique stays on Airbnb or any short-term rental platform they have stood the test of time. There are So much competition. Like think of Orlando, for example. A lot of people traveling through there. It is oversaturated. And so I love the route that you took and you created this very unique stay and it is gorgeous. And the link, by the way, is in the, it's going to be in the show notes. So definitely go look at the property and book it because it'll be amazing. So tell us, why shipping containers?
Yeah, I wanted it to be, like you said, a unique place to stay. And I had actually seen a shipping container home, tiny home, a few years before that I thought was the coolest thing. I was like, this is so cool. And I actually looked into just purchasing it because there's a few companies that make shipping container homes. And this one in particular is a company in Texas, and I called them and talked to them like, how much does this cost? How do I get it there? And then I just went into, well, what if I just built it myself and made it? You know, how can I? The goal is to make the investment as minimal as you can, right? So you pay the least amount so that you can get the biggest return, and that was what I kept in my head the whole time from the beginning of this. So what if I could just build it instead of having to buy it and get it here and figure out all that, you know what I mean? And pay all that different, it probably would have been faster, but
and you have a builder's background.
I do not. I don't know. Does that make it sound more crazy? I do not. I'm not a GC. I've not, built houses in the past or anything like that. I've always been a DIY person. So I've done a lot of, projects in the house and stuff like that. So I've done tiling. I helped my parents remodel their home whenever I was younger. So, I've done a bunch of little individual things. And I know how to do a lot of that different stuff. And then I had to just kind of put it all together inside of this to make this happen. But I also did a lot of research and I did a lot of learning beforehand. I even went to, there's a company in Florida, their name's Containing Luxury. And I found doing my research, I found that they offered a course where you could go and learn their process for building stuff. So I signed up for this course. I went to Florida and I spent a week with them working on one of their container homes and learning how they do stuff. So, and it was a super cool experience. And I learned how to weld there. I learned how to use PECs, to run PECs for plumbing there, how they run their electric. Like I took all of that away before I went into actually doing my build.
And huge that you said, I went and took a course. I traveled there. And that is so important. There's people who just watch HGTV shows and think, oh, I could do that. And, and having seen what you created, I was like, how did he do this without a building background? And it is phenomenal. So where does one find a shipping container to convert into a luxury short-term rental?
Actually, finding a shipping container is not hard. There's multiple places that sell shipping containers, and you're normally pretty close to one. I mean, you're normally within an hour or two of somewhere that actually has containers for sale. Atlanta is a pretty big hub for containers. So there's a couple yards. I got a referral from my chiropractor, actually. He was like, hey, I've gotten a couple containers before for storage, and I've gotten from this person. So talking to people and getting things like that, I can't tell you how much important that is. We'll probably talk about that a little bit more, but yeah, so I got a referral from him. I called them up. They had the lowest price, and we got it. We ordered it and had it delivered to the property. So
okay, so how much was it used, or was it brand new, and how much was it?
Yeah, so with shipping containers, there's two kinds of containers. First off, they're all used.
Okay.
At least once. Okay. But the ones they call new are called one trip containers. So they're all built in China, and they all get loaded with products and they come over from China. Okay. So once they get here, Then they decide, is this going to stay in service, or is this one going to come out and just be what's called a one trip container or a new container, and then we're going to sell it, right? And then they also sell used containers, so ones that have been used for many, many years. The one that I purchased was a one trip container, so it was considered a new container. It made its one trip over, it was taken out of service, and the reason is because they have less damage. They don't have they're not rusty, things like that. So if you get a used one, you may have to deal with getting rid of the rust that's on the outside, or fixing it if it has any like major dents or something like that. Mine had like a couple marks on it. It smelled new when I opened it up, so it was as new as it gets. So it was pretty cool to.
And how much was it?
My container was a little less than 6,000. It was just under.
Gosh, I have no clue how much they cost. So that is amazing. And
it was 50, 58, 57, 5,800, something like that.
And then you have to pay to get it delivered?
That was delivered.
Oh my goodness. And why do shipping containers make good homes?
Well, I think the biggest thing for me was I wanted it to be unique, and that's a shipping container is pretty unique. There's only so many of them out there for rent, like on Airbnb and stuff like that. I know people who have them, and they've been really, really successful with them. It makes it easy to build off because of the platform, right? You already have all four walls. All you're doing is setting it up. You're insulating it, and you're studying it out, insulating it, and putting in whatever you want to make it, your doors, your windows, and things like that. Now mine is I don't want to say a little over the top, but it is very, very custom. So you can do a lot less than I did and still have a really cool place. You know what I mean? So
yes, it is definitely custom. I love it. All right. So I want to move to the land portion here, because a lot of people don't understand this. There's a lot going into, I'm currently looking at purchasing land myself. So I'm learning tons. So how did you find the land? What do you do to the land? Just break it down for me, because you are teaching me now. So I want to hear all about this.
This is good, right? The student teaches the master.
Yes.
This is awesome.
Always room to learn.
Yeah, absolutely. And it takes time, because you really have to pay attention to different things when it comes to land. As I started looking at land, first off, looking at it online. So I'm just looking at, hey, what's for sale? And then when I found particular places of where I wanted to be, close to where I wanted to be, then I had to go look at it. You know what I mean? Because you need to see. Looking at it on a computer screen is nothing like looking at it in person.
Yep.
Right. You get there and it's a little bit different, right? Because there's no house on it or anything like that, and it hasn't been developed. It could be a hillside. It could have, water running through it. And I've seen a bunch of different stuff. I got to this one plot of land, and I was like, how would I make this work? It just continuously slopes down. So you have to think of, man, I'm going to have to do a lot more grading. I'm going to have to get dirt brought in here. You know what I mean? Stuff like that.
So really quick, when you're looking for land, it's called unimproved land. And that just means there's no utilities, there's no septic, nothing on the land at this point. So you're going to have to do all that stuff. All right, keep going.
And in some cases, though, too, it might be a piece of land that has access to utilities, right? So there might be hookup for electric or city water or sewer, etc. Right? But in my case, that wasn't. Plus, I'm also in a more rural area as well. But here's the other things about land that are very important that you need to know is, what are you going to put on the land, and is it allowed to be put there?
Yes, huge.
Yeah. So that was the next big thing was, hey, okay, I found these plots of land, but I can't build what I want to build. And that's because they had different covenants, different restrictions, things that were written into the deeds of the land where they didn't allow certain types of build, right? So a shipping container, a 40-foot shipping container, which is what I used, mine's actually a high cube shipping container. So it's 40 feet long. It's 8 feet wide, but instead of being 8 foot tall like a regular shipping container, it is 9'6" tall. So, and the reason for that is just so you have a little bit taller ceiling when you go in, right? After you stud it out and things like that. So it's only 320 square feet shipping container. So that plays into the land that you buy, because some land doesn't allow you to put anything less than a particular amount of square feet. So, and I ran into that a couple times where, hey, you can't build anything less than 700 square feet on this land. You can't build anything less than 900 square feet on the, you know what I mean? So
that's typically like in subdivisions or neighborhoods where they want a minimum size house. Is that correct?
in some cases, yes.
Okay.
But I had looked at a piece of land. It wasn't in a subdivision. And it still had a deed restriction of nothing less than 900 square feet. And then there's also other restrictions where you can't build anything other than a stick house, as they call it, right? A stick house, which is a normal build.
Yep.
Yeah. So they're trying to prevent manufactured homes from being put on the land, right? Or, like in trailers and stuff like that. But a shipping container is kind of unique because it's not, it's something that you're going to build out. But it does, kind of resemble a trailer-esque type shape, right?
Right.
Even though it's a little bit more unique than that. So that all came into play where there was pieces of land that I couldn't buy because of the restrictions that they had.
So one of the challenges I'm finding is because I'm actually looking for a waterfront property to build my own, and I want to do another short-term rental. So for me, it's if the land's going to perk, because most of this land that I'm looking at, it's heavily wooded or it's right near the water, which doesn't help with the whole septics in some situations. So how do you know if you can even put, because I'm assuming you had to put a septic. So how do you get permission from the county and do all that stuff? What were the steps you went through?
Yeah. So first of all, I reached out to the county before I even bought the land. When I started looking for the land, I reached out to the county and started talking to them and told them, listen, this is what I want to do. And this is what I want to build. And I'm looking for land to do that. And I want to make sure that I'm going to be able to purchase a piece of property and build what I want. So I want to be open with you and get your direction on that, so that I don't buy a piece of land and you end up saying you can't build that here. And right. I gotta change and make something up now. You know what I mean? So, but you have to have a perc test. So the perc test allows you to see if you have a viable place for you to put a septic. The land that I ended up purchasing actually had a perc test already. Nice. So I was like, oh, this is sweet. But I started looking at this and I looked at the plat map for the land, and I'm looking at the perc test, and I said, you know what, this doesn't match up. This doesn't look like all the perc sites that they used are on this piece of property. And guess what? I was right. So I went to them and I said, hey, I was like, if you overlay where these perc tests are over this plat map, I was like, some of these look like they're on the neighbor's property and not on mine. And they were like, you're right. And they went and did another perc test for me. Good. Because of that. So, and then that perc test tells you, hey, these are the places that we can actually put a septic tank in and, route your septic through. So. Good.
And I know you are looking to add another unique build. And this is on the same property? It's what is it, about 2 acres, you said?
Yeah, so I purchased 2 acres, and when I started, cleaning the land, I should say, I actually cleared a spot for the second one as well. So at the same time, because I had some time from the time that I purchased the property until I got the money to actually do my build and stuff like that, where I went and I don't know what you would call it, worked the land, I guess you can say. First off, but there was garbage on there. There was all kinds of stuff that it was crazy. I had to clean up all kinds of different things that people had dumped there over the years. You know what I mean, and throughout, and it was a lot.
Wow.
And I did all that just walking through and filled a 9 cubic foot trailer.
Oh my goodness.
Full of trash. I mean, everything from barbed wire to tires to construction pieces, wood that people threw out, and then just regular trash. I mean, there was all kinds of stuff.
Wow. So my question leading from the septic tank is, I know it's a smaller, it's going to be a 1 bath, what you currently have, the shipping container. Are you able to, I mean, did you get like a 3-bedroom septic so that you can tap into for the next property, or are you going to have to do an additional septic?
Have to be a second one. And really, it wasn't more of making it a bigger one. It was more of the lay of the property,
Okay.
and where I placed the container, and then where the second one would have to be. You know what I mean?
Good. Thank you for explaining that, because that's what I'm looking at. I'm thinking I'll get 1 3-bedroom septic and do 3 tiny cabins connected to that one. Do you think I would be able to do something like that?
Yeah. So in some cases, yes.
Okay.
But you have to check with the county to see if they allow that. And there's different reasons for that, because I actually had to have a discussion with them about that, because I was like, hey, I want to build 2. You know what I mean? So what can I do? So it depends on if they allow it, for one, how big the property is going to be, how much it can handle, right? How big your septic field can be from, so where it flows out.
Right.
And also, too, what they have you look at is the future. So are you going to separate this property later if you go to sell it?
Interesting.
So that plays into, hey, I'm sharing a septic tank with somebody. So if I sell these cabins separate later on, these people are all sharing a septic tank. So what happens if something goes wrong? You know what I mean? Or somebody causes something that's not somebody else's fault, etc. And the same thing goes for electric too. So, hey, I'm bringing electric in. Am I going to be able to separate this later? And if I can't, I have to sell the property together, right? So they had me asking, or I should say answer, hey, in the future, if you ever go to separate this, you have to consider these things. And so that's stuff that you have to take into account.
That is excellent knowledge that you are dropping there. So thank you for sharing that. And last thing I want to ask about the land, and some of them I'm seeing that they're landlocked. So I think road frontage is really important if you are purchasing, especially if it's going to be a short-term rental type situation. They have what are called flag lots, where you are literally driving down the side of somebody else's property to get to the back where your property is. So I think having a decent amount of road frontage, so it's easier to access, if I could speak, access the property. So was there anything with that you found?
Yes, there was.
Really?
So you have to worry about easements, and this all played into when after finding this piece of land, and I was like, wow, this is great. Like this is going to work out perfect if I can get this piece of property. And I walked that property multiple times. The 2 acres were completely wooded. At some point in the very distant past, there was a road cut into this, right? So somebody had cut a road into, and it was part of a much bigger piece of property that somebody owned. That person previously split it up, and they built houses on the other far other way. There's another road down the road, and they had built houses on the frontage of that road. Then they split the rest off and they sold it. Okay. So what I think is that they cut this road in to give access to when they were building those houses, which makes sense given all the trash that I found and what it was. You know what I'm saying? Because I feel like they were building those houses and then driving through this property and chucking the stuff out
Right.
of the truck because I had so much construction stuff that I found in there. But there was an easement on mine for the neighbor behind me
Huh.
where that road was. Even though it wasn't being used, it was all grown up. There was bushes and trees and all this stuff that I had to clear out of there. But there was an easement, which meant you couldn't build within a certain distance of that easement. And I was like, this has to be the driveway. There's just the way the lay of the land was. This has to be where the driveway is, and I need that easement gone so that I can build it, as close to it as possible. Just because of the way the land was shaped,
Right.
There's only
Right.
so much placed before you'd have to do significant grading, which I had to do, but it would have been much greater just because of the slope and stuff like that. So I had to have an easement, and I had to pay the lawyer to get that easement removed, working with the neighbor that's behind me, so that they can take that away before I even signed for the property. So yes, you have to pay attention to that and how far you have to be away from the boundaries of your property for where you want to build. And also, if there are any easements like that, what does that mean for the future? And people, like you said, drive through here and stuff like that. So it's very important that you check all that out beforehand.
And thank you for clarifying all that, because there's so much that goes into buying unimproved land, but you get to make it what you want. So do you get along with that neighbor? Are they nice?
Honestly, I've never met that neighbor. They they live like you when you're at the property, you can't see any other homes. So if you walk to the back of the property, you can see their house. But I've never met them. My dad was there working with me, and he said he had met them randomly. The guy who was cutting the grass next to me. They actually own like a little strip of land that goes past the side of my property that technically connects their property to the road that I'm on, but they don't use it. Their driveway goes out to another road. It's the weirdest split of property I've ever seen. So it's really, really strange. But anyways, I haven't met them. I've only met the neighbor next to me and the one that's across the street. They were both very nice.
Awesome.
And yeah, I don't have any issues with that.
That's one thing with short-term rentals. A neighbor can make or break the future of your rentals if they are jerks to people coming in and visitors, etc. So, all right, I want to get into financing, because you've already said you've had to pay a lawyer, you had to pay for this and that. So how did you finance this project?
So I was fortunate to find a private money lender.
Good.
And it really came down to I didn't really know how am I going to pay for this? I purchased the land myself. So I was able to, and this is a strategy. I don't know. I'll share my strategy in case anybody else wants to use it, because not everybody knows this. But if you have a life insurance policy, you're able to pull money from it, depending on how much, how long you've been contributing and how much you have a cash value that you can pull from. And that is what I did to purchase the property. So I pulled money, cash out of my life insurance policy and purchased the 2 acres so that I owned it outright.
How much were the 2 acres?
The 2 acres was $50,000.
Wow, great price. It's a beautiful piece of land too. So awesome.
Yeah. And at the time, I kind of compared it, when I gave that offer, there was other 1 acre pieces of property that were selling for 25. There's the 24,000, so somewhere between like 22 and 25. So I was like, you know what, I want to make sure I get this. I'm going to offer 50. They wanted more. I can't remember. I think they wanted 70, if I'm not mistaken. So I offered 50 and they accepted.
Good.
And I was paying cash, obviously. So, it made it a little bit, it took a little bit more time, because of getting rid of the easement and working through all that process and stuff like that. But that's how it works. So good strategy if anybody, wants to use that in order to get closed on something. And then I got a private money lender. So I started just putting it out there. I'm like, hey, I'm going to do this, but I made a presentation. I had a plan. I had everything already researched. I had numbers ready, which I think is very, very important, right? And I was very passionate because I was at a point, I think you just have to get to a point in your life where you say, all right, what am I going to do here? Am I going to be a W-2 employee for the rest of my life? Or am I going to make this happen and chase after this? And I had talked to another mentor, and I was like, listen, I just want to tell you about my plan. Can you just listen to it and tell me, am I crazy? Should I go do it? And so I started telling him about it, and it was the craziest conversation because he didn't say a word like the whole time. I'm sitting there telling him I want to build a shipping container home and I want to purchase this land and it's going to cost this much and this, and I got to do this and I got to do this and I got to do that. And I've already done this and here's my numbers. And he didn't say, and I was like, do you want me to keep going? And he's like, yeah, just keep going. And like, I must have talked for 30 minutes straight. And then I got done and I was like, so what do you think? And he was like, you don't need me. Just go and do it. And I was,
I love that.
I was like, wait a second. What are you talking about? This is what you're here for. Like, I need somebody to do it. And he's like, you don't need me. You've done everything I would have done. Just go and do it. So that's what I did. And I put all that together. As you know, I did a lot of research, right? When it comes to land, the shipping containers, how to build, and then coming up with what I wanted mine to look like based off of, I took kind of like my favorite things from other stuff. And then I put all that together. I made a presentation. So as you know, from our homeschooled education, we have a presentation format that we used for different things, for private money, for contractors, etc. And I took that and I built it and I put my presentation all together and I just started putting it out there. And
where did you put it out?
I put it out on Facebook. I sent it, on any social media channels. I just started telling people, and I was like, hey, if you know anyone, I want you to tell them I'm doing this. I would speak about it in different groups that I belong to, mentorship programs and just, real estate groups, real estate investor groups, or, any type of real estate groups, and was like, hey, this is what I'm looking for. People that I knew had money, had businesses, had access to money. I was like, hey, do you know anybody that would want to do a real estate investment? Because I have a proposal for that. And that's just to get the conversation started. And finally I talked to someone and they were like, yeah, let's do it.
Awesome.
And we set the terms and they just handed me the money and was like, good work.
I love working with private money lenders. Yes.
And I'm like, I was like, oh my God, I have this money. I'm protecting it, cradling it like a baby. And
very
what
good.
do I do with this over here? I got to be careful.
What are the terms?
So we did a 2-year loan where the way that it would work is once I started renting. So I had a particular amount of time that I thought I could build in. That didn't happen. It took a lot longer than I thought it was going to take. But in the terms was there's a minimum monthly expectation, right? But it wouldn't start until after those that's months that I was given to make the build. And then kind of like the clock would start, right? And that minimum monthly would just add on to my loan, but not be needed to be paid until the end of it. Okay. So it's a little bit of a weird structure. But once I started renting it, I would split half with my lender. So This is actually we're not even we're almost at the end of the very first month, and so at the end of this month, I will split that revenue with the lender, minus our expenses, our monthly expenses, which are minimal. But and then from this point forward, I will split that every single month with them, and then as long as it's over that minimum, they're making a little bit extra, right?
Nice.
And I don't have to pay anything back except for all the months where I wasn't getting any income. So that'll just add on to the total amounts at the end, and then that's what I will refinance out at.
And you'll pay them in a balloon payment at the end with everything else. So one really smart thing you did was you purchased the land first and then started doing all of your research, because a mistake I made was we purchased a house that needed to be torn down, whatever. It took us a really long time for to set up the renovation, meaning getting permits, getting the survey, all those things. So yes. And we were bleeding in monthly interest payments to our lender. So very smart of you to purchase the land first, get all your ducks in a row, and then get your lender in there. But it sounds like your lender wasn't collecting anything until you started collecting rents. That is an excellent structure to that loan. So bravo to you. All right. So quickly here, because I mean, we could talk about this forever, but how you mentioned the timeline of when you were actually what you thought it would take to build and then to what it actually took you to build. So what were the two drastically different timelines there, sounds like?
Extremely drastic. So I'll tell you, if you're jumping into this, it's going to take longer.
Yes.
But here's the thing though. I was working my W-2 and doing this as well. And for some strange reason, after I had gone to my workshop with the company in Florida, I came back and I was like, you know what? I think I can do this in like 3 to 4 months. I think I can make this happen. That it was not the case. It took me a year. So it took me a year, almost actually a year exactly. It was just like a couple days over. 1 year from the time I actually signed for the money and I got the money into my account until I was posted on Airbnb.
Got it.
And up for rent. Yeah. So I originally thinking that it was going to be those 3 to 4 months, but I live an hour from the property.
Oof.
I was working a W-2. So I would literally work. I'd leave, drive there. I'd work on the property. I'd drive back, and then I'd do the same thing the next day. And then every single weekend for a year, I spent there working on the property. And then any vacations I took, I would, I had a lot of vacation time because I was a very tenured employee, but I would take a vacation and I would just spend that entire week, 100% of the time working on the property. So
did you hire any help to build this?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that was another thing added to the cost, but decreased my time in being ready. Right. So I got to a point where I needed to build a deck because the container is elevated. It's sitting on 4 concrete pillars, and it has a 3/4 wraparound deck on it. And then It also has a deck on the top. So it has a rooftop deck.
Very cool.
So I did the rooftop deck where I framed it up, and because I had to attach to the container and with all that stuff. So I did all the attachments and framed that deck up. But, I was like, there's no way I can spend my time building this huge deck and then also be able to get the inside done. I needed to finish that. I was like, so I'm going to have to do it. So I hired a friend of mine who's a GC. Him and his brother are GCs, and they actually, they've built decks before. And I was like, hey, I need help. Can you do this? And they took them a couple months to do it, just with weather and different things like that. And I was like, wow, if I wouldn't have done that, I'd still be building right now.
Because time is money. So
yeah. So it cost me money, me personally in the end, because that wasn't built into the budget. But it saved me a ton of time. And I think it also, there was things that we had to that we encountered along the way, as far as the deck goes, where it's a huge deck. It's over 1,000 square feet. Just
Nice.
so it's between both of them, right? The top. So the things that they had to adjust and fix and things like that. And I was like, wow, it's a good thing that I did that.
Yes,
So,
money well spent. So,
yeah.
what were your final costs on the build? Because you did most of it and then hired them. So, do you remember what your numbers are for the total cost of the build?
Yeah, so I don't have the exact number, but I did stay under $200,000.
Nice, and that includes furnishings and all that materials.
Yeah, yeah. So that's also including though bringing in the electric. The property had no electric. It had no access to water. It had no access to sewer. So we had to drill a well. So I have a well put on the property. Had to bring the
What was that,
electric in.
about 20 grand for the well?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. All of $20,000.
I've had to do one too. They're not fun. And then how much for the electric, approximately?
Oh, the electric was a lot more than I thought it was going to be, actually. So, and I did a lot of this. So I trenched the line for the electric coming from the road to where the meter was going to be, and from the meter to the container. I also trenched the line for the water line that went from where the well is to the container. I did it all myself. So yeah, the electric ended up being over 10 grand.
Goodness.
Between, I had an electrician who I wired the container myself, but I had an electrician do my electric panel to hook it all up, and he hooked up all of my switches and outlets. But he also installed my meter and my meter box in the driveway, which is a huge panel with a meter on, and then it's set up for doing two properties. So when we brought the line up from the road, we set that meter box up so that, I have that going to the container now, but I also have it ready to go to the second build as well. So, and then purchasing all of that, the meter panel, the panel for the house, like all the materials, it's expensive.
So what's the next build going to be?
Yeah. So it's a little up in the air.
Okay.
I want to do another container, but not the same way that I built this one. And I have a concept of how I want that to look. So I think the other one is actually, to me, the other one's going to be cooler, just simply because it's a little more tucked back into the woods. Not that the first one's not in the woods. It's very private as well. But I think the second one, to me, the location of it is in a cooler spot for me. But there's some things that I have to work out before I kind of finalize, hey, this is exactly how it's going to look. And I'm kind of excited about that. So, and I also have to figure out where the septic's going to go for the second one. It's got to be different. So that's also going to play a part in that. Once I figure that out, I can adjust too, because you got to be agile with that, because things will change along the way and not end up being the way that you thought they were going to be.
Welcome to real estate. So how much was the septic?
The septic actually wasn't that much. I think it came out to about 8,000.
Okay. That's not bad.
It's got a decent sized field. We had to end up moving the septic tank. So they put it in, and the inspector came and was like, it's too low. It needs to be, they wanted the tank moved up a little bit. It's kind of like a little hillside, and they wanted it to be a little bit. So they had to take the tank out, fill the hole in completely, dig a whole new hole, put the septic tank back in. So it's sloped down a little bit more. And hey, you got to make the inspector happy. So,
well, Bill, thank you for educating me on this topic, because I am, again, so impressed with you, and I got you to the point of wanting to flip houses, and I coached you on those things. But when you went this other direction, and which I love, because a lot of people put up their blinders and they're like, I am going to flip houses. I only flip houses, or I'm only a wholesaler or whatever. And you have got to shift in this industry. So I'm so impressed with what you have done, and thank you for teaching me. And so Now, on the backside, what is this property going to make you? Do you have, and I know you're just in your first month, but it sounds like you're booking up rather quickly. What is your base rate? And I know you're doing a dynamic pricing tool, but what do you think your average income is going to be coming in? Just projecting.
So my goal was for it to be at around 4,000 a month.
Nice.
In my first month, we have 7 guests, or 8 guests, I'm sorry, since we're going live. And so I'm probably going to be close to 3 in the very first month, which is good because that's really working off of weekends. I have 1 full week booked, which is next week, but the rest of those were weekends. And then I have some dates in October and 1 in November that's already booked. But getting eyes on the property is the biggest thing that I'm working on right now. So I just had the local, there's a page called Discover Dahlonega that just, they're kind of like the marketing for the city of Dahlonega and the county. And they came out and shot some content and they shared a reel on their Instagram, and I got bookings right after it. I got a ton of I got over 500 more followers just from that one reel. Wow. That was like 30 seconds long. I mean, not even that. And so now the name of the game is getting it out there so that when you go into Instagram, that's one you see repeatedly, like some of the other ones. And that's what I'm focused on, to get more eyes on it so that we can get more bookings.
Well, I believe that this is going to blow up for you because I'm obsessed watching. You did have some great footage with all your videos, and it is amazing. So listeners, make sure you go to the show notes and click the link and book it. Go stay there. It looks like it is just amazing and truly a getaway, a retreat, and a very awesome experience. And also, before we go to the second part of the podcast here, the Airbnb, they discount the first couple bookings. I don't know if you even noticed that. So that's probably why you didn't get to that 4,000 right away, but it will definitely increase. And that also helps with your algorithms by getting your 5-star reviews and things like that. So sky is the limit for you, Bill, on this. And again, listeners, it's called Llama House in,
do it. Say it.
Dahlonega.
Yeah, you nailed it.
Perfect.
That's exactly.
Dahlonega, Georgia. So check it out. And thank you for sharing all that. I want to go to the second part of the podcast here, which is what makes Bill Goglin a badass, which you are. I'm so proud of you. And the first letter is B for book. What is a book that's made a huge difference in your life? Yeah.
And you had mentioned that before, and I was like, I don't read books, Jen. What are you talking about? I'm not a reader, first off. So I'll emphasize it. So if I tell you, hey, I've read this book and then you have to know that it is important, right? So one of my favorite books is called Fierce Conversations by a wonderful lady named Susan Scott.
Okay.
And I actually, for my job, I actually taught this as a class. So she wrote this book after she had spent many, many years in corporate America being a coach, essentially, a corporate coach. That's the best thing. And she would do that by just having conversations with them. So there's principles and foundations and things in there that are really, really important, but not just in work, more important even in life. So if you read this book, it will change you, not just for your job, but it will change you probably more as an individual in your everyday life. So it's an amazing book. She wrote that book, and then she built a company off of it. Wow. Called Fierce Inc. And they teach this class, and there's multiple things. So there's Fierce Foundations, and then there's Fierce Delegation, Fierce Confrontation. One of my favorites, how to confront somebody, because we don't do it correctly. And you will remember all of the stuff that you read from this book. And it has changed people. I taught that class and I had so many people come up after me and said, Bill, as not just at work, but I used this at home and it made a difference. And it really helped me out. So
you are so impressive. I love that. All right. The first A in badass is for advice. What's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
Yeah. So this is just a random conversation. Okay. The best piece of advice, and it seems very simple, but it was just keep going. So I was having a conversation with my neighbor at the time. I lived in Florida. I was going through a divorce. I was selling all of the things in my house and selling my home and moving. And my neighbor who had lived next to me maybe just over a year, he was a divorcee. He lived by himself, probably in his early 50s. And we're having this conversation, and he says, hey, just keep going. And at the time, I was like, this didn't fit in this conversation. Like, why is he telling me this? You know what I mean? Yeah, so it was really odd. But later on, as I got deeper into just life things and being alone, it was the one thing that popped in my mind, and I was like, man, he knew what he was doing when he said it. Like, he said it for a reason and a purpose, because in my mind, I'm thinking he had been in this spot and he was making sure that I would be okay going forward. So it seems very simple, but it was something that recurringly came to me whenever I was just not in a good place.
And
So,
look at how successful you have become because you have kept going. I love it. All right. The D in badass is for drive. What drives you to be successful?
I hate failing.
Good answer.
Yeah,
I don't see you ever failing, Bill. From what I know of you, you set your mind on something and you just go for it. So that's
yeah,
great.
and I'm a pretty disciplined person. I'm very organized and I like structure. You know what I mean? So and creating that too, because as you know, there's some chaos that comes with real estate, and I've been through some of it, right?
Just a
And so
little.
trying to manage that and put it in place, you know what I mean, and structure it. But yeah, I don't like to fail. And other than that too, I also like recognition. So I like when somebody is like, wow, this is really cool, and recognizing me. I would say that everybody's driven by something different. A lot of people are like, oh, I'm driven by money, etc. And this might sound crazy to you, and probably to your listeners too, but I hate money. I hate it. And not to the point where I don't want it, right? I want it because it's a necessity to live, but I hate that we're chasing after it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Does
Yep.
that make sense?
Yes.
I hate that we go to jobs that we hate and don't like, and we don't want to go to every day just to get money so that we can
Right.
do things that we want to do. So, I like being praised and having the recognition a little bit more, and having people say, wow, look, that's pretty amazing. He's able to do that, and come to me and say, hey, how did you do that?
Well, I am one of those people, obviously, because I'm very impressed with what you have done. So the second A in badass is for aspiration. I'm a big goal setter. So what is a goal you are currently working on?
Yeah, so right now it's working on getting the second build done. So for one, how's it going to be financed? What is it actually going to end up looking like? I already know where it's going to be, right? So those are the things that I'm working through as I transition out of my corporate life, and get all that stuff finalized and things like that. Then I can figure out, okay, how's that going to take place? And then also working on, I'm going to have to refinance this, right? So I'm going to have to finance out. So working on those steps starting now, because I have 1 year left, and I know that can go pretty quick, right? So in starting that so that I can have that in line, so when that time comes, it's ready to go.
Yeah, it took us over a year to refinance our tiny cabin. So super smart that you are starting now. Great job on that. All right. The first S in badass is for systems. I'm going to guess you are pretty deep into your systems. So what systems do you have in place to help you achieve success?
Well, right now it was really getting everything set up online. So, as far as like right now, my systems is management of the property, right? So having Airbnb set up, I use a dynamic pricing tool called Price Labs
Smart.
to create the pricing for the listing and how it goes. So getting in there, and so it was learning all of that. You know what I mean? So I'm very much into doing the research and figuring out how do I do this? How do I make this work? And what's the best way for it? So when it comes to the listing, creating that listing, using the dynamic pricing, I had to go through I went through little courses like this is how you do this is how you do that. I just did a course on creating reels
Nice.
or Instagram to get more views, right? So it's doing the research and learning and then applying it and having those things in place so I can make things a little bit easier for me. You know what I mean? So I'm not having to do it all the time. And then I just was able to share my calendar with my cleaner so that we can have a little bit better communication and creating a checklist for her to make it a little bit easier for cleaning and having the turnovers done, things like that. So it's really just setting things up to make it. I don't want to say it's fully automated because I still have to engage in it, but just to make it so that you can spend less time
Right.
in the details of doing it, knowing okay, I have this in place, so this is going to take place and get done and be working. You know what I mean? So
very, very smart. And to self-manage short-term rentals, it can be very, very easy. Well, I don't want to say easy, but it is, you're putting more money in your pocket. And it doesn't take too much time once you set up those automations. Very smart. So to wrap
the
up,
messages,
go ahead.
The messages in Airbnb, as I'm getting messages from people, inquiries and stuff, I'm creating quick replies and templates for when it happens, because I find it easy. Now I can just hit the quick reply and it goes to them and it's already done.
Very smart.
Yeah.
All right. So the final S in badass is, what does success mean to Bill Goglin?
So success is being able to decide on your own what you're doing with your time. I'm sure you've probably heard that before, or other people listening have heard that before. But just being able to get up and say, okay, this is what I want to do today. You know what I mean? Or this is the structure of my day of how it's going to go. Or I'm able to, I don't have to report to W-2, right? So I'm able to go and experience this because I don't want to miss out on that. You know what I mean? And I think that happens to a lot. I think of parents, right, who are missing out on their kids, whatever, because they have to go to the W-2. You know what I mean? Or
Right.
they're missing out on going to experience a trip or experience or be with their family because I can't. I got to work. You know what I mean? I got to go to work and do that. So you being able to decide what you can do with your time and how you want to spend it and where you want to spend it, that's what the way life should be. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Well, very, very well said. And I appreciate you educating me on how to develop land and all this. And it has been just amazing listening to you. And we did go a little bit longer. I did not want to stop this because I was like, keep going. So
we keep talking.
teach me. So Bill, it has been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. And listeners, make sure you go to the show notes and click on the link to his short-term rental and go experience it because it's absolutely gorgeous. So Bill, thank you so much for your time today and being on the show today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. This was awesome. I loved it.
You're awesome. So that is all. Thank you for listening, and we will catch you on the next episode. Now go out there and share your badassery, and don't forget, make it a great day. Take care. Bye-bye. Whoop, whoop.
Thank you for listening to RAIN, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform so you never miss an episode. If you need more badassery, you can follow Jen Josie by visiting therealjenjosie.com or become a member of RAIN by registering on rainmastermind.com.